Welcome aboard, applicants. I thought we would first begin with the first year law students exam, October 2004, excuse me. Question number 2. As with all essay questions, let's begin with the call of the question. The call says, what was an enforceable contract formed binding seller to sell the doll collection to buyer for $15,000? Discuss. We know that we're dealing with contract law here, so we highlight that. Put down our, we have seller, so it would be buyer versus seller for the binding contract. Okay, now let's read our question. Well, actually, before that, we should probably put our shopping list down. Let's do that. Contract formation, third-party rights, covenants, conditions, excuses, discharge duty to perform, and breach of contract, and then remedies. Make sure to put this on the second page so we all can see it. Okay, let's start reading the question. Seller inherited a collection of antique dolls from her aunt. In her aunt's estate, the collection had been valued at $15,000. On September 1st, seller wrote, signed, and sent the following letter to several well-known doll collectors in her area. Dear doll collector, I now own a collection of antique dolls that I am willing to sell for $15,000 to the first person who lets me know, to the first person who lets me know he or she wants the collection. This offer will be good for 30 days. If you want to inspect the dolls, I will be happy to make an appointment. Phone me at this number here, seller. On September 3rd, buyer, who was familiar with the collection, received the letter and immediately called seller to arrange to inspect the dolls on the same day. Buyer appeared at seller's home and inspected and photographed the dolls. She told seller, I'm interested, but I want to do some research. I'll get back to you. Seller said, okay, but my letter went out to a number of other people. I'm selling to the first one I actually hear from who wants to buy the entire collection. On September 4th, buyer took the photographs to an expert doll appraiser, and paid the appraiser $1,000 to evaluate and authenticate the collection. The appraiser told buyer that dolls were authentic and worth at least $30,000. Buyer immediately phoned seller, who was not at home. Buyer left a message on seller's telephone answering machine, saying, "This is buyer. I like the dolls. Please call me when you get home." Also on September 4th, just to be doubly sure, buyer wrote and signed a letter to seller stating, I accept your offer to sell your doll collection for $15,000. Buyer, and deposited the letter in the mail at the post office. Soon after buyer returned home from depositing the letter at the post office, she received a phone call from seller. Seller said, I got your phone voice message. However, I just want to let you know that I've had an appraisal made of the collection, and I'm not willing to let it go for less than $35,000. Buyer responded, you can't do that. I accepted your offer of $15,000. So you have to sell it to me for $15,000. Okay, now let's first go through contract formation here. We're dealing with an antique doll. So applicable law would be Uniform Commercial Code. Okay, UCC, because we're dealing with a good, the sale of a good. Make sure to establish merchant status. It doesn't appear that we're dealing with either party being a merchant here. Seller inherited a collection of antique dolls from her aunt. Just getting the idea, the aspect about antique dolls here. Also, we're starting to use our facts. She inherited it. That doesn't make seller a merchant. So seller would, at this point, I would say, was not a merchant. Buyer, well, the idea is that well-known doll collectors. So it is possible that buyer could be seen as a merchant, because it would be somebody who regularly deals in the goods of the kind involved in the contract, the doll collection, the antique dolls. Okay, so I would say as to seller, seller is not a merchant, and buyer is a merchant. Okay, it will be held to the higher standard of good faith and fair dealing. Okay, now under contract formation, we got to have the offer aspect, intent to be bound, certain definite terms communicated to an identified offeree. Right here, the aspect about the intent to be bound. This is when, let's see, right here, making sure in her antecedent the collection have been valued. Okay, there's your price term when we get to offer here. But on September 1st, seller signed and sent the following letter to several well-known doll collectors in her area. Well, this aspect here would be more of invitation to deal. So we're talking here maybe not as to an offer, because we're talking about invitation to offer, or invitation to deal. I'd probably put it that way, and that would be as to the letter that was sent to the antique doll collectors. So okay, so letter sent to antique doll collectors. But remember here, remember the aspect too, right here. This is the very important thing. The first person I hear from gets it. So we have it would otherwise be the invitation to deal would represent an offer, because it specifically calls out or an identified offeree, the first person that seller hears from. Right here, first person who lets me know. Right here, first person who lets me know he or she wants the collection. That's the party who she's willing to sell that to for $15,000. So this does represent a valid offer, even though it started out as an invitation to deal. Now, as such, then we're going to be looking at the terms. The terms of the offer, representing as quantity, right here, time, interested parties, price, subject matter. Okay, for quantity, we're dealing with what? Antique doll collection. So right here, inherited a collection of antique dolls. Collection of antique dolls. Okay, time for performance, which is saying about the 30 days. Then interested parties, this would be seller and first, let's see, person she hears from. Okay, and then price, that'd be the $15,000. And then subject matter, antique dolls. There we go. Okay, so we have sufficient terms. Was it communicated to an offeree? Absolutely, we know it was mailed. So it was communicated. So we have an effective offer at this point from seller. Now, coming down here now, going through, this is what we used. All of our facts here were used, and we already used this aspect, which got us to the invitation to deal. We also want to make a point here that, okay, now we're going to be going into acceptance. Okay, right now here. Okay, under acceptance. Okay, how did excuse me, seller indicate that she wanted the acceptance to be communicated? It was this right here, that she hears from. So I now own a collection of antique dolls and want to sell this for the first person who lets me know. So she's saying that she's technically it's a receipt aspect, possibly receipt argument for a form of acceptance. And also too, this could be a reasonable method as well, because she didn't actually indicate, although if the fact that she wrote it on a letter might be impliedly indicating the way that she wants it back. Okay, but she says something very important here. Phone her here. Okay, and that's a very important factor, because this really defeats everything that we just talked about. Even though it could be argued, this is the one that really controls it. She says phone her at this particular phone number. Okay, now on September 3rd, buyer who was familiar with the collection received the letter and immediately called seller to arrange to inspect the dolls on the same day. So this is the aspect about acceptance. So really, has there been an acceptance here? We'll take a look here. I have some more facts. buyer appeared at seller's home and inspected and photographed the dolls. So we haven't really have an acceptance at this point. Now, she told seller, I'm interested, but I want to do some research. I'll get back to you. So it's more in the aspect about rejection at that point. And then, excuse me. Now, seller said, okay, but my letter went out to a number of other people. Okay, so I'm willing to sell. So you could argue here that she might have revived the offer here at this point as well, saying that she's reiterating what the letter had said to familiarize, I guess, buyer with it again. Now, so we've gone through this. Now, making sure. And then also too, we don't want to forget to talk about the 30 days aspect concerning. We don't have from offer here because seller, remember, is not a merchant. Okay, now coming down here on September 4th, buyer took the photographs to an expert doll appraiser and paid the appraiser $1,000 to evaluate and authenticate the collection. So this possibly could be an aspect as to the. I want to put a question mark here on this one, and right here we're talking about irrevocable offer. Okay, and aspect would be detrimental reliance, and that would be the cost of having the pay the appraiser $1,000 to evaluate and then authenticate the collection. The appraiser told buyer the dolls were authentic and worth at least $30,000. So we now know too that that buyer has information concerning the actual twice the value benefit that buyer will receive. Even though buyer will receive, it's not technically unfair for buyer to gain $15,000 from this, but there are only other argument about that, and I would say question mark unconscionability, but I would defeat it immediately. Okay, buyer immediately phoned seller who was not at home. So we're talking about the phone acceptance here, right here. I would say the first acceptance number 1, was ineffective. Okay. Now we're going down now to acceptance number 2, and this is where we're talking about the telephone call. This is this is paralleling the form of acceptance that seller set out to have the phone call. So buyer immediately telephoned seller who was not at home. Buyer left a message on seller's telephone answer machine saying, "This is buyer. I like the dolls. Please call me when you get home." Now this is the argument could be made to phone her and then have her be notified. Is that consistent with leaving a message on a voice message system? It's that's the argument. So we're talking about here that telephone, voice, message. Okay. Now up here. Okay, so also on September 4th, just to be doubly sure, buyer wrote and signed a letter to seller stating, "I accept your offer to sell your doll, offer to sell your doll for $15,000, buyer, and deposit letter in the mailbox." We got right here. We've got mailbox rule. Except this number 3, mailbox rule. There's the problem with that. According to the traditional general mailbox rule, that the acceptance is effective upon proper dispatch. The only problem is the offer itself wrote out the mailbox rule. So I would say that this was an ineffective acceptance here. Okay. But the one that is possible is the message number 2. I'm going to say possible. Okay. Up here. So now we've talked about all this here, making sure that we talked about all the facts. Now, soon after buyer returned home from depositing the letter at the post office, she would received a phone call from seller. Make sure now too that in the event that there is an acceptance, we're going to talk about consideration here. Okay, if there is one now, and that up here, when she received a telephone call from seller. Seller said, "I got your voicemail or voice message, excuse me. However, I want to let you know that I've had an appraisal made of the collection, and I'm not willing to let it go for less than 35,000." Buyer responded, "You can't do that. I accepted your offer of 15,000, so you have to sell it to me for 15,000." Okay, so looking here at attempted revocation. So we got revocation, right? Why is the mailbox rule ruled out again? Oh, up here, that seller indicated that right here in the letter, she said phone me at this number. So it's phone me. I should probably just highlight that, and there we go. And the rest should just probably just go into the yellow. Phone me is actually what we're looking at here. That's the method of acceptance. See, the two methods of acceptance that take place down here. We see the first one is the inspection, which doesn't actually. This is the face-to-face negotiation up here, and so I'll put that down here under number 2. Face-to-face, and then the second acceptance here, which didn't actually okay, when parties part company, that in the face-to-face negotiation, the offer technically would at that point terminate. Okay, but the situation here, unless there's language to the contrary, which leaving the offer open, which is exactly what we would talk about here, which is that, okay, but my letter went out, that refers to an offer that she's saying is still good if you wanted to accept it. Okay, now on September 4th, buyer took the photographs to an expert dollar appraisal, and this is where we have the buyer detrimentally reliant. So there's a aspect here about irrevocable offer detrimental reliance, which is the appraisal for $1,000, and that's where buyer finds out about the $30,000 price. So just yeah, so just that the first person she hears from, yeah. The buyer immediately phoned seller, who was not at home. So this is the aspect. She said, "Phone me." So the argument down here under acceptance is that the telephone voice message is a possible acceptance if that's what she meant by phone her. Okay, because she leaves a telephone answering machine message that says, "This is buyer. I like the dolls. Please call me at this when you get home." Is this enough of an unequivocal assent to the terms of the offer? In other words, is this enough for would you still talk? Yes, you would still talk about the mailbox rule, but it would technically be ruled out by this aspect up here. That's where acceptance number 3, the mailbox rule. So let me put this out here. We have telephone conversation, telephone voice message. Okay, excellent. Okay, excellent. Okay, and then which is possible? It's a possible acceptance here, but question mark. Okay, the mailbox rule, which is the letter that was mailed, that's the acceptance number 3. I don't see that as effective, and therefore the revocation aspect here. See, I got your voice. Okay. Soon after buyer returned home from depositing the letter, she received a telephone call from seller. This goes to revocation. Seller said, "I got your message. However, I just want to let you know that I've had an appraisal made of the collection. I'm not willing to sell it for less than that," which is the revocation. Buyer responded, "You can't do that. I accept your offer." Okay, so down here, it looks to me like we have a revocation, but I like how you discuss the acceptance. Okay, yes, that's exactly right. So we probably should, so we should probably do that. Thank you for pointing that out. We have September 3rd, September 4th. Okay, so right here, okay, September 3rd. I thank you for pointing that out. And then we got acceptance number, possible acceptance number 2. This is September 4th. Because remember, she was going to be doubly sure. Now, in the event that we have a valid contract, we just throw it on consideration. Talk about the statute of frauds here, which would be sale of goods $500 or more. and then a when, which would make this communication here the breach of contract, and then, or anticipatory repudiation, excuse me. And then we got breach of contract, perfect tender. And then down here under remedies, what is the fact that an expert was now remember the expert though was buyer. Seller had she was only somebody that had inherited the antique dolls, and that's why when we're dealing with antique dolls, what I want to do is be able to get down to remedies here. What we're dealing with is expectation, or first of all, mitigation of damages, expectation damages, possible consequentials in this, incidentals, and then the one I really want to get to is a specific performance. Okay, which is that aspect about the unique good, which would be the antique doll. And that's in the event that we have a valid acceptance on the telephone voice message, which is a possible acceptance, which then kicks us right into consideration, the sale of goods, and then all to this. Okay, so that looks, and then we'll have a conclusion here. Okay, and then looks to me like we pretty much tackled this one here. So unless you can see anything, I'll come up to the question real quick here. So the argument is, or the thing that be answered was an enforceable contract form binding seller to sell the doll collection to buyer for $15,000. Well, it all depends on whether or not that September 4th telephone call was an acceptance. And I put forward the argument that this is buyer, I like the dolls. Is that enough of acceptance? It's questionable. Okay. Modification of offer. So that's the only thing here. Modification is more of a performance issue, and I don't see that happening here. Well, what? And then I see let it go for less than 35. That's I can see what you're saying, that you wouldn't let it go for less than 35. That she's actually making a small offer there. But the thing was an enforceable contract for the 15,000 was the question. You're right though. Good observation. If we had additional issues to talk about, or more of a more of a general call versus a specific call like the one we're given here. So so if we're going to come down on this, that we probably would have just that much if there's no acceptance, but we'd fill it out a little bit further if there were an acceptance. So it's an interesting argument. Okay, now we'll switch gears now and go into our next question. Okay. Now, as with all of our essay questions, we go to the call of the question. What arguments may Lois reasonably raise in support of her lawsuit? What counterclaims and defenses may Tammy reasonably assert? What is the likely outcome? Okay, so let's talk here. We got Lois v. Tammy. Okay, let's come up here and read our question now, because we don't know our area of law yet. Lois rented a furnished apartment in her building to Tammy, a medical student, for 9 months, beginning June 1st. Tammy prepaid the first month's rent. When Tammy arrived at the apartment on June 1st, Ralph, the prior tenant, was still there despite the fact Ralph's rental term had ended on May 15th. Tammy complained to Lois, and Lois was able to evict Ralph by June 15th. Tammy took possession of the apartment on June 16th. Okay, so we're looking here. We have real property, and it looks like the area of real property that we're dealing with here would be primarily landlord tenant. So let's bring out our landlord tenant law here. So we got type of tenancy. What we're looking at here over here, is Lois rented a furnished apartment in her building to Tammy, a medical student, for 9 months. So we're looking at possibly reoccurring payment periods. Why am I saying that? Because this is prepaid the first month's rent. So I'm thinking we probably got periodic tenancy here. Okay. And make sure that we're making sure to satisfy the statute of frauds writing requirement, and it has to have the description and a signature of the party to be charged here. Okay, but remember too that periodic tenancy also has there's a notice aspect as well. Keep that in mind. Now come down here after periodic tenancy, we're going to be looking at any of the claims that might be brought up now. This helps us here to establish this, so we make sure we're keeping track of the facts we've used. Now Tammy prepaid the first month's rent. Okay, now here we go. Talking about rent is specifically dealing with the possession. Okay, delivery of possession. Now, delivery of possession aspect is when this kicks in here. Now, when Tammy arrived at the apartment on June 1st, Ralph, the prior tenant, was still there despite the fact that Ralph's rental term had ended on May 15th. So, under the delivery of possession, under the common law aspect, holdover tenant. Well, see there, that would be something else if that were raised against, if I remember correctly up here, this Ralph up here. Under the common law, so we can make sure to do common law, modern law distinction here. Under the common law, the argument that was that could be raised by Lois is that he delivered possession to Tammy upon what? The actual agreement itself. Okay, but under the modern law, there actually has to be physical delivery of the possession, and therefore she can actually withhold rent, and that's why rent. One of the issues here that we're dealing with is rent and the delivery of possession. Okay. Now, after having talked about this, now Tammy complained to Lois, excuse me, Lois, and now when she complains to Lois, this is the aspect too as to let me put down our rent issues here because we'll make sure to our acronym. Okay, okay, that, and okay, yeah. We talked about that. Okay, yeah. So we're dealing with possession, constructive eviction, and surrender of the possession. So we've dealt with that, and that'll be taken up here with Tammy complained to Lois and was able to evict Ralph by June 15th, which sets the date as to how much rent Tammy is liable to Lois for within the first month rent. Okay, now the apartment above Tammy's. Okay, let me because I want to talk about this too. I don't want to put two there when there actually are one and there actually is two. So under rent, common law, modern law, that's what it was. Thank you so much for your patience on that one. The rent under the modern law is that there's a duty to pay rent. However, there might be a defense to that payment of rent, and that's the aspect about the delivery of possession, according to our acronym RED PCs. Okay. Now down here under the apartment above, Tammy was occupied by Coco, a member of an upcoming band, the Gyrations. The band daily rehearsals interfere with Tammy's studies so much that she complained repeatedly. Okay, here we go. We're dealing with quiet use and enjoyment aspect here, because this goes now beyond rent, and we're looking at the condition of the premises itself. Because mainly the three areas that we're going to be talking about under landlord tenant law would be rent, the condition of the premises, and let's see, condition of the premises, and let's see. I'm gonna have to hold off on that for just a minute here. But what we're dealing with up there is quiet use and enjoyment. Okay. Let's see. There it is. Okay. And that would be concerning the condition of the premises. Okay. And up here now, we're going to be looking at this would substantially interfere with her ability to enjoy her apartment, because why? How is it doing that? Well, because she's not able to study because of the gyrations noise. Okay, so that's what we want to put in there. The daily band's rehearsal interfered with Tammy's studies so much that she complained repeatedly to Lois about the continuing noise. Now, here on July 15th, the gyrations were arrested. Now, this is the other aspect too, at Coco's apartment for disturbing the peace. Now, this is another. This I would probably point this out as being, this is be for noise here. And this aspect, same aspect, but this would be for let me thank you for your patience on that one. I gotta copy and paste this. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, right here. Quiet use and enjoyment. This would be for safe safety. Okay. Concerning that they were arrested at Coco's apartment for disturbing the peace. After that, Tammy was spared the noise from rehearsals. Okay. Now, beginning July 16th, the shower in Tammy's apartment delivered only cold water, and so this is where we're going to bring up the other aspect, because remember, we're dealing with, there's rent, condition, and think about this. Possession. That's right. Okay. Now, when we're dealing with this aspect here, beginning July 16th, the shower in Tammy's apartment delivered only cold water. Tammy complained and Lois. Okay, this goes to the I'd say partial eviction. Tammy complained and Lois promptly hired a plumber to fix the problem. So we're dealing with. I'm gonna have to. You know what? I need to take a quick break here. Thank you so much for your patience. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, the shower, I would have to say at this point we're dealing with, because we've got rent, the acronym for rent, right, PCs up here, then the condition we're dealing with, possession, we're dealing with HEAO or EA. This one we're dealing with. Okay. And this is where habitability argument right here for delivering only cold water. I'd argue that habitability. And under habitability, there's this would be for only cold water. That he had at he has a duty to to fix the uh, duty to fix those particular problems as to habitability that pop up. So that we'll take care of that here. Okay, Tammy complained the Lois promptly hired a plumber to fix the problem. Okay. And then the repair only worked for a week. Okay. Tammy was too busy with her studies to tell Lois. So we're looking here that, yeah, can Lois have a defense of Penny not telling her about the shower? Yes. So that's the other aspect is the the duty to repair, which goes with the habitability. Yeah, the argument initially was that the July 16th it fixed the problem, but only for a week, and she didn't notify Lois of it the second time, or to have it repaired again. So the argument is at that point we're not really sure exactly what's going to happen to it. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much, although that she might, the aspect about she might repair it, she might leave. But yeah, here there's a lot of different remedies, and so we'll hold off on that for just a minute here. Now, on August 30th, Tammy's stove in her apartment stopped working. Okay, now there's one here, another habitability argument. Also, it could be argued as well. Habitability, yeah, is it? That's exactly right. A defense for Lois. Yeah, you could argue that notification. You could, Lois is the defense of notification. Now the duty to repair. Oh, right, sorry, up here. Let me bring this down here. Right there. Okay, perfect. Okay, now the duty to repair. We're talking habitability. First, it would be concerning the stove. Oh. There we go. Then, oh yeah, what would you list the issues by date? It's not a bad argument. You know what? We could throw that into our analysis as well, probably. Tammy discussed it with all these events. Knocked. Okay, that this is after this one here. That stove in her apartment stopped working. Again, there's the problem of notification of this. Okay. Now down here, or by event, exactly. I would say more event driven here. On August, okay, discussed it with these events, knocked on Lois's door, gave the key to Lois, and said, "This place is due. I would not even live." Okay, so we're talking about constructive eviction at this point. And under constructive eviction, we're going to be looking to see what was the first thing. Was it uninhabitable? Uninhabitability. Notification to landlord. Then we're talking about then okay, she actually does leave, so notification landlord, uninhabitability, notification landlord. I'm gonna have to hold just thank you for your patience. And then there's no response from the landlord. There we go. Let's see, response. Okay. And then actual moving out. Okay. Well, do we see that here? Was it uninhabitable? The argument could be. We're looking at first that we're dealing with the plumbing, the cold water aspect. 2, we're dealing with the stove in our apartment stopping working. And the other aspect too under here that I don't want to forget, for the stove right here, we don't want to forget about partial eviction. That it was only a part of the apartment was rendered unusable. Okay. Now, but remember here, uninhabitability. That's the big lingering question mark here. Okay. Right here. Thank you very much. Okay. Down here, no notification, landlord. We see that here, right up here. I'll show you. This is the August 31st. Discussed with these events. Knocked on Lois's door. Okay. There's your notification. Gave Lois the keys and said, "This place is a zoo. I would not live here if you paid me." Okay. So Lois took the key and said, "Sure, okay, if that's how you feel." So there we go. So there's an aspect about was there a response from the landlord? So there was a response from the landlord. She moves out. So what does it kick into now? I would say at this point, could Lois actually relet the premises? Because I would say an additional argument here as well would be abandonment. Okay, and under abandonment, we have accepting the surrender, which is exactly what happened here. We have there would be a reletting, and there would be a actual leaving. So right here, there we go. And so down here, Lewis took the key, said, "Sure, it's if that's how you feel." There's acceptance of the surrender. There would be a Tammy stopped paying rent, never returned to the apartment. So there's the aspect about her stopping rent, which is be the constructive eviction aspect, is her best argument for ability to stop rent, not necessarily the abandonment argument. Now, Lois commenced a lawsuit against Tammy for breach of her lease and special damages for past due and prospective rent. This is the remedies aspect here. So we'll put this down here. Okay. Now down here, oh, thank you for your patience with me. Okay. Now right here, I talked about that. Now, what arguments may Lois raise? This is exactly what we brought up. So we could bring this out here. I think we got this. So we'll bring this down to the page here, and there are all of the issues that we could bring up, and I think that's it. What are the special damages? So this is the aspect up here: breach of release and special damages for past due and prospective rent. See, that's breach of lease, past due rent, and remedies for special damages. So I think is that how the breach of the lease and then special, okay, for past due and prospective rent. I get it. Breach of lease, the remedies, past due rent, and then remedies would be special damages, which would be the economic damages. But remember here, when we're dealing with right here, special damages, remember the aspect about damages, that they have to be certain and foreseeable. Okay, so we're going to keep that in mind. And the reduction of the rent. Now the aspect too is if he accepted surrender, does that because we're dealing now with from the beginning of June, we have July, and then we have August here. So we would technically only have 7 months rent. So the argument is Lois would be able to argue 7 month rent unless Tammy is able to argue that the constructive eviction took place and that she doesn't have to pay rent because she gave back all of the keys, which represents the possession. So she gave back possession. Voiced her back down here. We talked about this, voicing the aspect about the argument concerning habitability, and that there was a response from the landlord, which might be in Lois's favor, and that's why it probably kicks it more into an abandonment argument. And under that, she might be liable for that 7 months rent. So we want to make sure to talk about that. And other than that, she might be able to deduct though also to the time up here that she wasn't able to completely occupy. Okay, the apartment. Okay, thank you so much for. Okay, and okay, actually we'll just conclude on this here. Okay, I want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Amazon Kindle book, Battling the Big Bad Baby Bar Essay Basics. I thank you so much for tuning in, and God bless.